From an undisclosed locations for reasons of security and insecurity, we present you tonight MnRTV live show. And tonight our special guest, Nick Redfern. Keep out. High security facilities, underground bases, and other off-limit areas. He will be coming on tonight at 8:15. And as usual, right now, I'm going to introduce to you my co-host right here, Mario the Madman. Mario, are you excited tonight? We're going to author, special researcher, UFO, Nick Redfern.
Rob, you deeply know that I'm always excited whenever we get any guests on the show, or whenever we do the show. It always excites me, because that's the point of us doing the show. It's to get the information out, to let people know what exactly.
And this will be brought to you by the Montreal Anti-Illuminati Task Force. And here it is, my Illuminati resistance. We are the resistance. MnRTV, MnR, we are the resistance. Fighting the New World Order. And tonight we're going to be talking about many different subjects. D.U.M.B, dumb, deep underground military bases that we're not supposed to know about, we're not supposed to talk about, but we do anyways.
Yes. So, yes. We must get it out, right?
Yeah. Now then. All right. So it's been a pretty awesome week. Nothing much to report. Everything's good. Everything's great. Everything's dandy. But let's get on, because we've got a big show tonight.
Let's not fast forward, but rewind. There's a lot of things. That's why we're doing the news before we get Nick Redfern, right? Our Gale.
He's coming on at 8:15 tonight, Eastern Standard Time.
So
let's get on with this worldwide transmission.
Before we do that, let me introduce myself once more before I go and I show you the share screen, right? Because that's very, very, very important. So this is me. This is Mario. This is who you hear talking, right? So now I'm going to be switching on over and showing you exactly what you all want to see, or what we know that we're going to be showing you, right, Dale?
Yeah, that's right. So folks, do not go away, and it begins right now for another show. And here's our blog right here, MnR Production Blogs, blogspot.ca. And if you go down, you see our show, and all you have to do is refresh.
Productions, Mariolaur.blogspot.ca. Very important, but it's underneath the show in the description, and right there is the information.
And right there, you just refresh right there.
If you don't see,
and there's a chatango.
You got to refresh.
We hope that tonight there's going to be a lot of people on the chatango, because there always is. And it's going to be great when people communicate. If you have questions for our guest, don't be afraid to ask them. Write them down, and we shall ask Nick information questions, because we've got a lot of questions for him tonight.
We've been at this since 2006, more or less. Well, we started doing the show in 2012. But anyhow, let's commence and talk about the pictures of the week that have been both on Google Plus and Facebook. The conspiracy talk, right, Dale?
Okay. Here's the pictures of the week, and the first one is: they sold out each other. They'll sell you out. Crooks, liars, filthers, swindlers, adulterers. That's Bill and Hillary Clinton. Exactly. Globalist elites that are up to no good themselves.
Nah, we don't trust them, guys. They're reptilians. That's what they are, right?
Definitely. There's some kind of alien DNA in them. And maybe we could ask our guest that later tonight.
And prior to these reptilians, here's part of their family right there.
Grandpa Bush, Grandpa Koch made a fortune financing Hitler, made a fortune working for Stalin. The moment you realize Republicans have been making deals with the devil since before you were born. And that's true.
Now, Democrats and Republicans, they're all the same thing, if you ask me. They're all the same thing.
Right side, they all work for the same for the same agenda. Not political. Both political parties work for the same person. The same people, the same evilists, globalists.
Yes, they hold up each other. You know, they work for each other. That's here to fool us, the people.
What if I told you that the war on terror was never meant to end? It's true, it never was meant to end, and it's continuing and continuing. Now ISIS is the big thing, and who knows what they're going to have. Before that was Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, and next, we don't know. They're probably cooking up some damn evil scheme.
It's World War III all over again.
Yeah.
So we've on next, this one.
Do you want demons? Because that's how you get demons, through the Ouija board. Enough said with that. That's a picture that's worth 1,000 words. You want demons in your life? Just play Ouija board, and you'll get trouble. And
But
that's
we've
a
done
fact.
a show on this, right?
Yeah, I believe we've done a show on Ouija boards
Yeah, we have.
a while back. I'm voting for Trump because he speaks his mind. Well, so does my 2-year-old. It doesn't mean she's right for office. That's right. Donald Trump over here. That's another reptilian, and that's for another time and place to talk about him. But we at MnRTV do not like him. In fact, we don't like anybody of president.
Yeah, you got to tell them we like the viewers, right? But not the people in power. We don't like the elites. That's what we're talking about. And Trump is an elite, but that's a whole show on its own right there on Trump.
Exactly.
Because us we're here to destroy the system.
System, that's right. Look at the system right there. We hold up the system right there, and there's the elite, and there's the military, and there's like on top, it's the money. But on top of that should be Satan himself. And look at the other one, the system. If we all rise up, it's all going to collapse like a house of cards, which would be good.
They want us to do that. They want us to be sheep, like sheeple. They don't want us to wake up, but we need to wake up.
Exactly. Native American lost their history, their land, their culture, and is one of the least discussed genocides in world history. It's true. You only hear certain genocides, but why don't we hear of all of them? That's what my question is. There's like a lot.
There was the Turkey one, which was never spoken. I mean, sorry, not the Turks were involved in 2 of them, which are never spoken about. The Greeks versus versus the Greeks, and then versus the Armenians. There's so many, you know, so many genocides, but nobody talks about it. The history books don't want nobody talking about it, and I wonder why. Because the history books have been rigged like everything else. Everything's a lie.
Exactly. Okay, next. You think this is natural? The brainwashing is working well, and it sure is working well when you see this type of weird chemtrail cloud going on.
There's nothing much for me to say, but look at the sky.
Yeah, that's something we want to look at too well. And this is very small. My heritage genie. And I guess that's between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, isn't it?
Yes, that at the end of all eons, they're related together. They're probably reptilians and linked together through reptilian bloodline. Speaking of more Trump.
The world, according to Trump 2016, where Ted Cruz belongs.
In Canada?
Yeah, in Canada, and ISIS this, banned from banned from UST, Obama's homeland, Miss Universe farm. People live here in Australia, Gasputin, F these guys. In the Middle East, nuke. Where I go to buy wires? Where's that? Is that in the Netherlands?
That's Europe.
Europe somewhere, yeah.
He gets his wives from Europe.
Yeah, like wasn't Marla Maples and Ivana Trump from there?
Yeah.
I don't know about Marla Maples, but Ivana Trump. Where I built my gulag.
But anyhow, the Trump is a very funny man. So we've on next.
I'm not laughing. Speaking of which, was it because of a protest or was it because of guys out for a walk one night and decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point? What difference does it make? What is she talking about?
She's a murderer. That's what she is. After what happened in Benghazi.
Yeah. Did you know in 1960s US prescriptions were 1 billion, now 300 billion, 70% of WTP on meds. OD deaths up 600%, second only next to car accidents. Half of kids on psych meds, 1/6 adults on sleeping pills. Pills are the #1 getaway drugs. Diabetes is up 700%, Alzheimer is up 800%, cancer is up 1,000. US is 49th in life expectancy, but #1 in medical profit. Oh yeah, Big Pharma is doing very well. That's what I can say for that.
They're killers. That's what they are. They're big killers and they're big mobster. That's what they are.
Exactly.
Donald Trump again.
Again, Donald Trump isn't going to win. The system isn't set up that way. He's here to lose. So you are satisfied with whoever they put in office. Yeah, like it's like the big boogeyman that they create. So like that, Hillary doesn't look as bad.
Yeah, well, they'll want Hillary because they'll say she's more normal compared to Donald Trump. You know, she doesn't talk much and she's like quiet, and that's the whole reason why Donald Trump is going crazy. It's one reason why.
I take pills daily for sleep, allergies, sex, and to stay focused. But I would never vote to legalize marijuana. I don't support drug addicts. This meme says it all.
Yeah, it does. But because marijuana is the best one of them all, and society, they want us to think that marijuana is the big drugs and it's no good and it's not a kill, it's a killer and it kills your mind, but it's not true.
Exactly. The problem isn't that Hillary is an unethical, corrupt, lying, criminal dirtbag. Everyone knows that. The problem is that her supporters don't care. And it says here, join us, stop Hillary in 2016.
I mean, no matter what, they're always screwed, whoever they vote.
Whether it's Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, it's all no good. It's all like crap.
Like in a nutshell, right here.
Yeah, a nutshell right here about conspiracy theories, right here. I'm not going to read it all, but you guys can see it.
That's what they think about us. That's what the world wants us to think. And if you go around saying, yeah, it's a conspiracy theory, they'll think you're wacko. You'll think you're nuts.
No, for sure.
So all those pictures were found right here.
In the conspiracy stuff on Facebook.
And if you want to see our latest shows, they're always right there. Just click here and it'll bring you to the blog. And you're up to date. Well,
and then you just refresh.
And it keeps growing.
And you click on it.
And it keeps growing and getting bigger. Okay, now let's see what's happening on Chatango before we get to the news.
Paulie's there. Hi, Paulie.
All right. Hello, Leland and Paulie, and you people are the great eels. Great eels. Right there?
Yeah, okay, let's get going with a bit of the news.
Yes, and there's a lot of goodies that have been plucked out for the news. All right, now Dia's one. I know we're going to be getting...
Now military bases exist. The existence of D.U.M.B, neither conspiracy nor theory, they do exist.
But we'll be getting more into detail with Nick Redfern when he comes on. But as you can see, this is March 7th, so it's recent news.
Does life imitate art, or does art imitate life? Does the U.S. government get its best ideas from Hollywood, or is it Hollywood an outlet for leaking information to the public in a controlled fashion? Several scenes in the movie's Transformers depict an underground military base. In the acronym-based language of militarized, these facilities are often described as deep underground military bases or D.U.M.Bs. And without regard to this artificial life, the focus of this article is subterranean bases. Do they exist? The answer is yes.
Look at this, how ironic. Hey, we're getting Nick Redfern talking about this, and this was posted on the web. You see that? Isn't that ironic?
Exactly. But I don't know if you watch Superman. They have their own military deep base. I mean, Supergirl, the TV show Supergirl. They talk a lot about aliens and everything. And that's why they have deep underground military bases to protect the Earth and also a threat against aliens. So I think fiction is more fact than anything else.
No, they know something. Hollywood and the media, they all know. They're all onto this, and they're practically laughing at us, right? And they're telling us, look, you guys are watching too much Hollywood. That's why it doesn't exist, but it does exist. Anyways,
Exactly.
we'll get into more detail with Nick Redfern about that. I just had to show that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, he'll be coming out at 8:15, and it'll be great having him on. We can't wait for that.
All right, what would this show be without Fukushima?
5 years later, Fukushima's contamination is slow to fade. Fish still show contamination, but the levels have dropped. Slowly, but not enough.
I don't believe it.
The Fukushima nuclear disaster occurred almost 5 years in 2011. It is the largest event of its sort since Chernobyl, which occurred 25 years earlier. The accident was triggered by tsunami and earthquakes that led to a meltdown of the plant. Since this event, large amounts of radioactive materials were released into the atmosphere. Since then, Fukushima Daiichi has continued to leak radioactive materials into the ground and nearby oceans. Following the accident, concerns surfaced regarding both agricultural products from the region and the fish caught in nearby waters. So what's your thoughts on Fukushima?
My thought is it's still leaking, and it's going to come to the Pacific Ocean. It's going to go through the Pacific Ocean and hit the United States of America, and that will affect the crops because it's California is near there, right? That's where we get our fruits and vegetables.
Exactly.
See, it even says that species. Look, you see, it's all contamination. But the media doesn't talk about this. The media doesn't care, right?
No, they don't. It's been a while that they don't talk about it much. It's like they gotta talk about Kim Kardashian posting a nudie on Twitter.
Now this one here, it hits home. Look at this.
Florida nuclear plant cooling water leaking into national park study. Oh no. And I know a few people in Florida, a few friends and family. Cooling canals connected to the Turkey Point nuclear plant south of Miami have leaked water containing high levels of radioactive iodine in Biscayne Bay National Park, preserving one of the largest coral reefs in the world, according to a new study. The study released by Miami-Dade County in southern Florida found that tritium levels in Biscayne Bay were up to 250 times higher than average ocean water in Miami Herald, reported tritium. Heavy isotope of hydrogen is considered a trace of nuclear power plant leaks. Let's hope nothing happens there.
But it's funny, eh? It's very funny because you know what? We don't hear this in the news. How come? How come they don't talk about this in the news?
I don't know. But I would just love to know if people that are watching the show, our viewers from Florida, if they know anything about this.
Yeah, it would be really great if they can let us know.
Exactly.
Wait a second. I don't know if you could see this. Don't really hold on. Yeah, it looks big enough. Now NASA news.
Yeah. Okay. Just click that little thing off. Have NASA just been exposed? using green screen. Mind blowing. I heard about that. I read this article before.
Yeah, this came
One
out
of the most
March 3rd.
controversial topics to date on Sonar is the Earth Flat article, which clearly touched a nerve from globalists around the globe, which react to predictable levels of outrage for even daring to suggest that we've been living a lie these years. Do you hear feedback, Mario?
No, I'm okay. I hear you well.
I hear feedback. Despite the evidence I presented, which suggested that we are indeed living on a flat Earth, the overwhelming majority of comments the article received to rebuttal my argument was basically sold on NASA footage and the picture taken from the ISS. If we have something on camera, it is therefore must be true, right? Well, not exactly. Like most conspiracy theories, which turned out to be true, it was only a matter of time before tangible proof of fakery were accidentally revealed by NASA, which proves beyond any doubt that NASA is complicit in propagating the biggest fraud the planet has ever seen. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to have your minds blown. A video surfaced featuring war criminal and mass murderer George Bush Sr. During his visits to the control center, the camera pans across the room, accidentally catching astronaut Tim Perks red-handed in front of a blue screen with a grid pattern of the screen is perfectly positioned between him and background of the ISS set. The blue background is identical to the one used for Chrome key work and a pattern recognition grid from which the Oral Virtual Studio. In simple terms, just a very green screen that I use in movies for digital tricks. So, Mario, do you care to tell us what they did?
Oh yeah, you should. Everybody should watch this video. They'll say, "Wow!" They'll say, "Son of a gun! How the hell did they trick the world into believing that they went to the moon and that they went in space when it was all camera tricked to show us that they went there, but they never did go?" And that's exactly why sometimes I doubt that the world is round, that the world might be flat, simply because NASA says that the world is round, and we know they didn't go into space and see that the world is round, so it must be flat. But then again, it's a debate. That's the only thing that I say. Maybe the flat Earth theory is actually the Earth is flat simply because of things like this. Because I don't believe NASA. Who would, right?
No, did the Bible to say it's a sphere?
Well, that's what they say it and it says, but
But okay, why is the moon round? Why is the sun round? Why are
because
the
they
other planets
because they made it that way. It's like a disc. That's what it's like, a pill. You know what a pill looks like?
a pill?
A
A
pill
pill.
that we take.
A pill, yeah. There's those round circle pills, and there's also the long ones.
All right, I won't go there. I'm sorry. It's just that, it's like, do you believe NASA? That's the question.
Well,
That's what
NASA's
I
never a
want to
straight
know.
answer.
But do you believe NASA? If NASA tells you there's a comet coming towards Earth, are you going to say, hey, we have to listen to NASA? That's the thing. Yeah, but I know the world, but do we believe NASA or not? That's the question. That's the
Well,
question.
I
NASA's,
personally think the world. I personally think the world is round, not flat, and it's a psyop done by the elites to make us conspiracy people think otherwise, and to fight amongst people. I mean, I'd love to take a rocket ship and just go there, but I personally think it's round. But people can think what they want.
I think also
People,
it's round. I also think it's round, but I don't believe I don't believe NASA, and NASA's the one saying it's round. So should we believe NASA or not? Anyhow, that's a whole big debate. Maybe we'll have to do a whole
we've
show
done a
just
show.
on
We've done
that.
a show on the flat Earth theory. All right,
Yeah,
my
maybe we ought to redo one. I don't know. All right, the next
well,
one.
we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what the bosses say. Why world's largest particle physics lab, CERN, has a statue of Lord Shiva. CERN, which houses the largest hadron collider, has a 2-meter tall statue of Lord Shiva performing the Tandava. Many Hindus celebrate Mahashivaratri on March 7th. In accordance with the Hindu calendar, to venerate Lord Shiva is considered one of the most important deities in the religion. Interestingly, Shiva is also known as Natrajas and symbolize the life force, and as a statue at CERN, Switzerland, home of the largest hadron collider, one of the premier research institutes in the world. Why does one of the world's premier research institute have a statue of Shiva? Well, we know why we've done this before. It's because Shiva is physicists have the most advanced technology to portray the patterns of the cosmic dance. And didn't India give money to them?
Yeah.
And that's why they put the statue of Shiva. But she's also known as the goddess of destruction. And what is CERN trying to do right now? If they haven't done it already, open up doors to parallel universes and multi-dimensions.
Yeah, we've done a show on CERN, right? But
and there's a statue right there.
the only reason why we're bringing this up, it's because it's in the news. So if it's in the news, we bring it up.
Exactly. So yeah, exactly. So CERN, we all know about CERN, what they're trying to do, and it's nothing good. Nothing good at all. I mean, I don't trust CERN.
Who does?
I know.
Did I crack the worm, the can of worms on the flat Earth?
But Lalan's right. Our universe is a matrix. We're in a simulation. It's as if we're in some kind of computer, because time exists. It's everywhere. Time, past, present, future. It's all happening at the same time. It's all simultaneously. It's just in our view right here in our 3D bodies, whatever you want to call it. We're stuck here, and we only see what we can see, what we feel.
All right, the next thing.
Once we leave these bodies, and I think through meditation and astral travel, you could get more of a sense to this. But I haven't done astral travel, so. A biotech company is using human neurons to build powerful computers. Man and machine here.
See, this is part of what we were just saying. See, it all ties in.
The computer industry has been facing an existential problem for a number of years now because of the physical and quantum limitations of silicon dioxide. The speed of a silicon-based computer processor can only be pushed so far before it melts. To get around this, the industry has resorted to packing more processors into individual devices, hoping that the additional processing power will make up for the lack of increase in speed. But this method can also be pushed so far. Researchers are working on new technologies at the hopes of replacing silicon altogether with optical and quantum-based processors being developed. And conversely, at least one tech startup is using a very old technology in their bid to push beyond the silicon wall. Yeah, they want to build quantum computers.
Look at this one.
Yeah, like the 100 billion neurons that make up the average human brain represents more than 40 petaflops of processing power, roughly 500,000 times the power of an iPad, typical iPad, and is far more energy efficient than our current technology. The world's most powerful supercomputer, China's Tianhe-2, has nearly the processing power of the human brain, but uses 24 megawatts of power as compared to the mere 10 watts that the human brain requires. They want to to miniaturize the tablet-sized device down to the size of a nickel by 2018, and this is all alien technology, folks. It's just I think what they're doing is this alien fallen angel technology is just slowly giving us the information, the technology slowly by abducting us and as humans and performing experiments, and what happens is we get bit by bit technology.
And all this is all for one thing, because the end game is that they want to control us and, make us slaves even worse than we are now. So that's why I say we got to destroy the system.
Exactly, for sure. Indeed. Yes. Our guest is coming on in about 15 minutes or so.
So stick in there. Don't go anywhere. Don't just leave, because we're just talking about the news, because this is the news that the local radio stations and that the mainstream will not show, so we're going to show it. All right.
Navy SEALs destroy Hillary. You are an ignorant liar. According to American News, Russell began by calling Clinton out for a lie that she told the audience in order to make herself appear as courageous as American soldiers. Of course, he was referring to the lie Clinton told about dodging enemy fire in Bosnia. I remember landing under sniper fire. Clinton once said there was supposed to be some kind of greeting ceremony at the airport, but instead we just ran with our heads down to get into the vehicle to get to our base. It was a moment of great pride for me. Yeah, I can imagine. I would love to see what those emails say that Hillary Clinton is hiding. I'd love to see what they say.
Too bad. What's his name? The guy wasn't able to work with the NSA. What's his name? Edward Snowden. Yeah. He would have told us what exactly happened. Now the point of this is there's a good video here. It actually shows what the hell you know, this guy Russell was talking about, and the thing is, it's with this, well, why it's so important, because a lot of people think, oh, I'm against the Navy SEAL, I'm against the military. I'm not against the military. I'm not against American soldiers. They're just there doing their job, getting paid to go around doing what they do, right? But I have nothing against them. They're humans after all, right?
Yeah, they are human. Okay.
They're only human.
Only human, exactly.
Time is running short, but we have another two bits of news. Now, wait, this is back to Hillary. This is back to Hillary. And look,
Hillary Clinton's campaign manager convinces her to release secret UFO files if elected. I've heard of this before.
And what the hell does she know?
The Democratic frontrunner has apparently been persuaded to agree to tell the world what the U.S. government knows about the UFOs if she gets to the White House. Didn't Jimmy Carter say the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
But you see, UFO research information is above the president. It's above top secret levels. And
maybe that's what she had in her emails.
Who knows? But if she actually did tell us, released this information, you know, it would be nice. Okay. Hillary Clinton is fast becoming the Democratic Party front runner before the presidential election, but it seems her destiny may have been written in the stars, literally. Campaign chairman John Podesta says he has convinced her to tell the world about the UFO ET phenomenon. The long-term advocate of ending excessive secrecy seemed to have struck a chord with his boss, who has pledged to get to the bottom of it and have a task force go to Area 51, the military base where American test flies for its top secret craft. But Mario, you know what I want to go besides along Area 51, don't you?
Yes, and every time you say it, the lights are flickering and computers shut down. So I don't know if you wanna say the D word.
The D word, the D base. Well, we've done shows. I think last week we did a show on the D base, you know. But we'll be talking about the D base with our guest tonight later on. But getting back to this, I wonder if she'll actually tell the truth about what's going on with ETs and that.
Yeah, for sure. They're going to say that they're our God and we have to worship them, and that's exactly what they did back in the days of Skitzen was talking about. What's his name? Stitchin.
That's
yeah, that guy.
Of the Sumerian text.
Yeah, that's it.
Zachariah Stitchin.
Anyways, all these articles will be posted in the description. That's what I do after the show. I'm busy linking everything up. So,
and then after that, once our show once it's recorded, it's on YouTube. You guys can share it. You know.
Yeah, that's very, very important. Anyways,
Very
this is
important.
lots of information. You could pause the video and just read it, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
There's young Hillary, right there.
I wonder what happened to
Hey, look at the guy's last name, Rockefeller.
yeah, with Lawrence Rockefeller in 1995. Well, what do you know, eh? What do you know? What do you think of that?
I told you, they're a whole big happy family. That's what they are. They're a whole big happy family. But Hillary, she likes to lie.
Well, so did her husband lie too.
Yeah, they had all kinds of affairs, and she's probably going to have an affair. And the last one, last but not least, what would this
Before we
show
go to
be?
break, is there a massive underwater UFO base in Guatemala Bay? Conspiracy theorists claim Marines saw secret craft virtually every night. It could be a government craft also, backward reversed engineered. Testimony filed at case 74794 in the archives of the Mutual UFO Network. UFOs were dull and about 50 to 100 feet across and with a red light behind it. One specific occasion, he witnessed a big, beautiful cloud with a blue and white pulsating light quietly hovering over his and a fellow soldier head. UFOs were seen flying in and out of major underwater bases near Guatemala Bay almost 50 years ago, according to bizarre claims from a former U.S. Marine. The ex-Marine has come forward to reveal what he and his comrades experienced in 1968 and 1969. The White Station, Guatemala base. So, there's a lot of UFO traffic over around the base of Guatemala.
You see, ex-Marine. Now that guy is my hero because he spoke up and he said exactly what we all want to know.
What we
There
need,
are
what we
good,
need to know, what should be told to us.
there are some good ex-Marines, and that they don't all hate me or us for saying what we say.
I know we've got our shares of enemies, and well, it's the type of work we choose to do.
Yeah, but all we're trying to do is say that we're fed up of being slaves. I'm just fed up of running for a piece of paper that's not even backed up by gold or silver. It's
It's a
just
printed piece of worthless paper.
yeah, which it has a
No
digit on it. The digit is what gives it a
value.
little bit of value. But and
So
in this
you can imagine
Guatemala,
UFO and Cuba. Huh. Isn't Cuba like near, but I don't know if it's around, but it's near around the area of Bermuda Triangle.
yeah, it's around that area.
Like I'm
It's
not saying
not
it's
far.
close, but it's like, yeah, exactly. So what I'm thinking is there must be some kind of portal there,
And that's
and
why
there
they
are
brought
UFOs.
that's why they brought all those terrorists there.
Yeah, and look! Do you see the ship? Look in the ship.
Yeah, I know, agree.
Look! They saw an alien flying it. I've been told to silence. I shouldn't be talking about aliens and UFO research because I've been warned not to, and I continue doing so. So, you know,
Our lives are in
hopefully
risk
this
and
will come
danger.
out. What?
Our lives are in risk. We're in danger.
Exactly. Yeah. Just the other day, I was warned not to talk about UFOs anymore, and I continue to do so because it's got to be. What else am I gonna do? What am I gonna go talk about? I'm gonna go back to talking about, I don't know, sports and that.
Yeah, but
I
you
mean,
know
I love sports
something?
and that, but
This is a hobby. This is a hobby for you and I. This is what we picked up, a hobby.
exactly. But it's a deadly, costly hobby. I mean, some people could take dope, could smoke, could gamble, could do other stuff, and we do this. And look at this. Think you've been abducted by aliens. It may be sleep paralysis, and I've gotten that. Agents Mueller and Scully may have said the truth out there that in the X-Files, but it may instead be buried inside the brains of people who claim they have been abducted by aliens. The fourth kind may suffer false memories, I'm telling you, when the first time that I got that, it was so real that these shadow creatures were coming inside my body and trying to take me. And it was like a gray, some kind of dimension, gray background, lifeless.
But you know what? The X-Files should do a show on both what you had in the Hat Man.
Yeah, you
Sleep
got in the hat and the sleep
paralysis.
paralysis. Yeah.
That's what they should do.
Well, you never know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
exactly.
Exactly, Polly. You told me to keep quiet,
Yeah,
not to
then
talk
why?
over you.
Why are they shutting us down for? Why?
By trying to.
Why?
All right, we better go on break before we get our guest Nick Redfern on the
Yes.
show.
People don't go anywhere. It's only going to get more and more interesting from here on in, right? So don't go anywhere. Stay around and enjoy. As for Trish, here she is. Here's Trish.
Nick Redfern, born 1964 in Pelsall, Walsall, Staffordshire, is a British best-selling author, ufologist and cryptozoologist now living in Dallas, Texas, United States. 1-2 Redfern is an active advocate of official government disclosure of UFO information and has worked to uncover thousands of pages of previously classified Royal Air Force, Air Ministry and Ministry of Defense files on unidentified flying objects, UFOs, dating from the Second World War from the Public Record Office and currently works as a feature writer and contributing editor for Phenomena magazine. 13456's 2005 book, Body Snatchers in the Desert, The Horrible Truth at the Heart of the Roswell Story, purports to show that the Roswell crash may have been military aircraft tests using Japanese POWs suffering from progeria or radiation effects. 7 Content Show Biography Edit Redfern attended Pelsall Comprehensive School in Pelsall from 1976 to 1981. He also worked at Dixon's Paint Suppliers with another ufologist, Martin Lenton. Redfern joined rock music and fashion magazine Zero in 1981, where he trained in journalism, writing, magazine production and photography, later going on write freelance articles on UFOs during the mid-1980s. From 1984 until 2001 he worked as a freelance feature writer for the Daily Express, People, Western Daily Press and Express and Star newspapers, as well as a full-time feature writer for Planet on Sunday. Between 1996 and 2001 he worked as a freelance journalist for the British newsstand magazines, The Weekender, Animals, Pet Reptile, Military Illustrated, I Spy, The Unopened Files and The Chapter. Between 1996 and 2000 Redfern signed a 3-book publishing deal with Simon & Schuster of London for the publication of A Covert Agenda, The British Government as UFO Top Secrets Exposed, 1997, The FBI Files, The FBI as UFO Top Secrets Exposed, 1998, and Cosmic Crashes, The Incredible Story of the UFOs That Fell to Earth, 1999. These books were published in the United Kingdom, Canada, Russia, Poland, Australia, New Zealand and Portugal. In 2003 per Review Pocket Books New York published Nick Redfern's book Strange Secrets, Real Government Files on the Unknown in May of that year. And, in March 2004 per Review Pocket Books, New York, published his book 3 Men Seeking Monsters, 6 Weeks in Pursuit of Werewolves, Lake Monsters, Giant Cats, Ghostly Devil Dogs, and 8 Men. This book tells the story of his relationship with Jonathan Downes and Richard Freeman of the Center for 14 Zoology, and has been optioned by Universal Studios. Redfern has run the United States branch of the Center for 14 Zoology since 2002. In 2007 Universal Studios bought the rights to this book in the hopes of making a film from it. 10-11 Redfern works on the lecture circuit, both in the UK and overseas, and has appeared in internationally syndicated shows discussing the UFO phenomenon. 3 Redfern is a regular on the History Channel programs Monster Quest and UFO Hunters, National Geographic Channel's Is Paranormal and the Sci-Fi Channel's Proof Positive, as well as appearing in an episode in the 3rd season of Penn and Teller. Bullshit, titled Ghostbusters, For 1213 he has also appeared on a variety of television programs in the United Kingdom, including The Big Breakfast, Channel 5 News, and GMTV. He has been identified as a member of an informal group of friends often called others as the Paranormal Rat Pack and the Cabal. Other members are filmmaker Paul Kimball and authors Greg Bishop and the late Nat Tutties. 1415 in 2012 Redfern took on the role of on-air radio talk show host of a paranormal-themed internet radio show Epic Voyages Radio produced by the Inception Radio Network 1617.
Thank you very much, Trish. You're always welcome. Your voice on the show.
Exactly. So what I'm gonna do now is because we can't get him on Skype. I'm gonna have to call him, and because he told me his Skype's not working well, they're messing around with his Skype, so I'm gonna have to call him. So Mario, I'm gonna get off mic and get him on the phone. So you think you could hang on?
All right, I can.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah. So, what were we talking about now? Yeah, she did swear. Unfortunately, she did. It's, it happens. She reads exactly what the hell I say. I told her not to swear, but hey, it appeared on there. Maybe, I don't know how that got on, but it happens. It slips through. So anyhow, what were we talking about? There's so much to talk about. It's like I don't even know where the hell to begin. So the military, why they don't like me, I don't know. I tell it as it is. I tell them that they're slaves like everybody else, that they're running around for a dollar. For the dollar, they're being enslaved, unfortunately. And I'm trying to tell them that they're sheeple. They're sheeple. But what can we do? Them, they want to do it. It's like, come on, man, give me a break here. Wake up. Everybody is on a mission. Your mission, everybody's mission is to wake up and every morning and say, you know what? Today I'm going to go earn a few bucks, but it's never enough. That's the problem. That's what they need to realize. How come they're only working for minimum wage? How much are they getting paid? How much is the military? Yes. Oh, I thought Robbie was back. How much is the military getting paid?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
all right.
I'm back. Let's see. All right, let's see. Nick. So Nick, Nick Redfern, welcome to the MnRTV live show. Would you care to tell our audience a bit about yourself?
I work as an author and journalist and write books on everything from UFOs, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, Chupacabra, Roswell, conspiracies, and anything that's kind of a little bit weird, I'll have a go at investigating it. And that's basically what I've done for about the last 20, 25 years, something like that.
Oh, great. I want to talk. Let's talk a bit about your book, Top Secrets Keep Out, about the D.U.M.Bs, the military bases.
Well, yeah, Keep Out was a book that was published 4 years ago, and it deals with worldwide examples of secret bases. Everybody kind of has heard of Area 51. You don't have to be into UFOs or anything or conspiracies to have heard of it. Everybody's heard of it. It's kind of like a strange situation where it's the world's most famous secret base. If you could have something that's secret and famous at the same time, Area 51 is the best example. But a lot of people don't realise how many other similar type of installations there are around the world. And so I thought, why not bring these to people's attention? So the book covers everything from the US to the UK, China, Russia, you name it. So and there's a tremendous number of these sort of underground installations and above ground installations as well, but which are very hard to access.
Yes, I can imagine. Now, what are the differences like in security levels between, let's say, Area 51 and the Dulce base in New Mexico? Like, isn't Dulce base even worse, like more top secret than the Dulce base in New Mexico?
Well, a lot of the stories coming out of Dulce, which is this small town in northern New Mexico, Dulce itself actually has an interesting history, because even before the stories of the so-called underground base began to surface in the late 70s, a lot of weird stuff was going on. For example, in the mid-60s, the Department of Energy had a project to explode bombs underground in the area as a means to try and open up shafts to get natural gas and for energy. And so you had all this digging underground and explosions underground, and people being told this is government land and stay away. And some researchers think that the underground explosions to release the natural gas was actually kind of a cover story to try and smoke out and destroy underground extraterrestrials, something like that. And then in the 1970s, there was a spate of cattle mutilations all around the Dulce area from about 75 to 77. And the FBI has declassified its cattle mutilation file. You can find it at the FBI's website, the Vault, where you can download it as a PDF, and it's filled with reports from all across Dulce from that period of cattle found with organs missing and blood missing, and reports of black helicopters flying around the area. So, this all sort of predates, as I said, when the story began to sort of trickle through around about 79, 80, 81 of this underground base. And a number of people have come forward claiming to have worked there and have talked about how it essentially is underneath this huge mesa called Archuleta Mesa. And the story is that it goes down sort of multiple levels below the mesa itself. And at various levels, different things go on, like genetic experiments and abductions and all sorts of weird stuff. And supposedly, the deeper the level, the more controversial the work that's going on. But probably the most controversial aspect of the story are the claims that the US government, the US military, essentially has been locked out of it or is fearful of going in there. In other words, it's sort of a no-go area, even for the government, that the extraterrestrials supposedly have complete control of the base and are pretty lethal, and so everybody stays away. That the ones who know the secret just daren't go in there, for fear of not getting back out again.
Have you been at Dulce Basin any time or near it in your life?
Well, I've been to the area, and the mesa is, you can easily see the mesa. The problem is, of course, is understanding or knowing where, if there are entrances and things like that, or shafts, where they actually are. That's the big problem, because we're talking about a vast area, that sprawling area that goes on for a big area. And so for that reason, we still have people talking about seeing black helicopters in the area, and occasionally military personnel, and sometimes hikers walking around the mesa. I've found like discarded like military canteen equipment, and things like this, demonstrating that there is an occasional ongoing military presence there. But I've never sort of been able to access any kind of, what you would call an entrance point or anything like that now.
So in your areas of expertise, what is more secure, Area 51 or the Dulce base?
Well, I'd say that they're both equally hard to penetrate, but for very different reasons. The one in Dulce is because we just don't know where the entrance points are. Now, in terms of Area 51, that's almost, well, I'd say almost, I think it is impossible to get into because of its location. Although it's actually only about an hour and a half drive out of the desert from Las Vegas, it's actually not, it's not that far from Las Vegas. It's about 95, 96 miles, which is nothing. But the problem is, of course, it's not like just traveling 95 miles outside of New York City. You're heading straight out into the Nevada desert, and so the last 20 miles or so, you start to see warning signs that you're approaching government property. And it's not like you can get up to the perimeter fence and they turn you away. You can only get within like 15 miles of it before you get turned away. So in other words, and because it's surrounded by mountains and steep hills, you really haven't got a chance of getting in there. There are security personnel constantly patrolling around in cars. There are motion detector sensors in the area, and also sort of weight detection sensors. So in other words, they have these technologies that are calibrated. So if, say, for example, something like a bobcat or a jackrabbit, was walking across, it wouldn't register on their screens or, on their sensors, but something the way to the person would. So, just trying to walk through as well, is a problem. They have sort of heat-based sensors as well, so that makes it doubly difficult. Like even at night, if you think you won't be seen, well, the sensor will pick up your heat signature, your body temperature signature. So, regardless of what's going on there, there is really no way to access it. And I mean, when people talk about deadly force, the personnel there really do have permission to use deadly force if people try and get on the base. And of course, there's the issue that Area 51 is sort of a huge sprawling area of land. It's not like, it's just one gigantic facility. There's a lot of stories about underground sections of Area 51 that have been expanded upon, where to the point where what's underground might sort of massively eclipse what's above the ground. In other words, whatever we see above ground on some occasional satellite photos is really perhaps just 4 or 5% of what's going on deep below. So, but it's interesting that although a lot of all the UFO stories are denied officially, that there's none of this going on, the fact is it still remains the most carefully and heavily guarded military installation in the United States. There's really nothing that compares to it. So, you have to wonder if it's just sort of next generation stealth aircraft and weapon systems that are being developed, which goes on at other military bases and private corporations where the work's farmed out to them. You have to wonder, why is the security at Area 51 so much more stringent and secure? So I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people suspect there's much more going on beyond just, regular futuristic or advanced weapon system technologies.
So this is even above the president. He wouldn't know. He wouldn't be able to go to Area 51 or Dulce Base, even if he wanted to, right?
Well, I mean, I'm sure if he really wanted to go, he could. But on the other hand, a lot of people don't necessarily realise sort of the concepts of what's known as need to know. And need to know means if you need to know, that's fine. If you don't need to know, no one's going to tell you because you have no need to know. And of course, when presidents get elected, they might be in power for 4 years. If they're lucky, they get 8 years. And a lot of presidents, when they come into power, although they may have had a background in politics, they haven't necessarily had a background in the field of national security and the world of intelligence. So, in other words, prior to becoming the president, they may never have been exposed to sort of classified and secret data. So in other words, it's a very big leap. Kind of hypothetically, let's say that Donald Trump wins the presidency. Well, he would go from being someone who's a businessman and a star of a reality TV show to suddenly being thrust into the world of high-level, top-secret intelligence data. And so you can understand why sometimes the people who are sitting on the secrets get a little bit antsy and uncomfortable about sharing high-level, extremely classified material with someone who essentially has just gone from being a businessman or reality TV person to suddenly becoming the president. So very often, presidents get briefings on different subjects. Obviously, no one's Superman, they can't take in everything. So they have particular people working for them whose job it is to sort of summarize the latest, whatever's going on in Iraq or, North Vietnam, that kind of thing. Excuse me, North Korea, I mean. And, really just so that the president has a breakdown of what's going on in a summary. But when you look at the issue of how the UFO subject is probably hidden by what are called black budget programs, that's to say, not even acknowledged to exist. You know, everybody knows that the CIA exists and the NSA exists, etc., etc. But black budget programs and black budget agencies essentially are ones that, for all intents and purposes, don't exist. And most people in government know nothing about them or what they do unless they're cleared to know. So it may be if the president asks what's going on with UFOs and did aliens really crash at Roswell, well, their advisors, you know, his advisors, I should say, might go to the CIA and say, what have you got on Roswell? And they'd say, well, we've got nothing. They might not be lying. They probably aren't, because it's this black budget group that is sitting on the Roswell material. And if even the president's advisors can't find that group, you know, if Congress can't find it, if the Senate can't find it, then the president's not going to know as well. You know, and I think a lot of people find that concept kind of bizarre. But if you imagine the idea of a group that is so deeply buried, possibly physically, I mean, literally buried, but also buried in terms of being secretly hidden, you know, in terms of paperwork and budgets, etc., then you can understand how and why the president might not know, not because he's been lied to, but because even the government itself cannot find this secret group.
What's your thoughts on, because we ran an article before, maybe you've heard of it, that if Hillary is elected, she's going to reveal about the UFOs and the mystery of UFOs and aliens. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, I have heard this, but I mean, the only thing I would say about this is, not only have I heard it, you know, I mean, I've heard it with pretty much every other president. The same thing was said about Obama. The same thing was said about Bill Clinton. Jimmy Carter said that when he got in power, he was going to reveal everything that, you know, he could conceivably find. Ronald Reagan made sort of allusions to what would happen if, you know, hostile aliens visited or attacked the Earth, how we would all sort of unite as the human race rather than, you know, having fights with each other. And a lot of people thought he was trying to sort of get something out to people without actually saying it. But, you know, all of these presidents who promised this or said that, it's never happened. So I think either they get a briefing as to why it cannot be released, or they're actually prevented from finding the information, or it could be a combination of the two in some respects.
Has your life ever been in danger because of doing UFO research?
No, well, not as far as I know, at least. You know, I've never had sort of black vans follow me around or anything like that. And but I think for the most part, and even I have to admit this, you know, it's an unfortunate fact, is that no one in the UFO research community has access to things like autopsy reports on the Roswell bodies or anything like that. If those files from the 40s and whatever still exist, which I'm sure they do, then whoever's sitting on them knows and is very pleased by the fact that, you know, they're probably 200 feet underground in a well-guarded underground bunker, you know, and they know that we can never get them. So in other words, I don't think, although I think most people in the UFO field are probably watched, there's probably a file on most people in the subject, but the fact that they realise none of us can, and it's unfortunate I have to admit this, but, you know, none of us can access the Roswell files. So in that sense, we're not a threat, you know, because they don't have to do anything because we can't do anything. So I think in that sense, you know, and I think there's no doubt there's been some mysterious deaths in ufology. I mean, I wrote an entire book on this a couple of years ago called Close Encounters of the Fatal Kind. So there's no doubt there's been some mysterious deaths in ufology, but the number of deaths that there have been are actually very small, you know, sort of 50 or 60, possibly 100 out of literally tens of thousands of people have been involved in ufology since the 40s. So I think what happens is that the only ones who are in real problems or potential real problems are those who actually have got an inroad to something and, you know, they've uncovered something that those on the inside overlooked. And I think that's when people have to sort of be a bit careful. But personally, I've not had any sort of nothing like that. I have had a few weird phone calls and things that maybe think that my phone has been monitored, which wouldn't surprise me at all in this day and age. But, you know, again, it's one of these things where that's just one of the things that happens when you go looking for stuff like UFOs.
Have you ever seen an alien?
No, I actually haven't, but how I got interested in the UFO subject was my dad was in the British Royal Air Force. He was a radar mechanic, and he was actually involved in several UFO incidents. This was back at the height of the Cold War still. And he was involved in 3 incidents at the height of a NATO exercise called Mainbrace, which occurred off the English Channel and the North Sea in Europe. And he was involved, as I said, in 3 incidents where fast-moving, high-flying objects were tracked on the radar scopes by the guys at the base, or one particular base that my dad was at called Neatishead. And they were sort of like a front window, if you like, on Eastern Europe. You know, they were the guys who were tracking, or would track if the Russians ever launched a nuclear attack. So, you know, they're constantly on 24/7 alert and monitoring what's going on, you know, towards Russia. And they started tracking these things, which were flying at almost impossible speeds for back then, you know, decades ago. And they were also performing weird maneuvers, which no aircraft could do back then, you know, like sudden stops from 1,000 miles an hour to 0 in a second, you know, which would kill the pilots in an aircraft if you tried to do that through the G-forces. And this went on for 3 nights, and pilots were sent up to intercept these things. The pilots couldn't get close. These objects were sort of playing games of cat and mouse with them. And at the end of it all, everybody, including my dad and the other radar mechanics, the radar operators, the pilots, the ground crew, everybody was told, "But you won't talk about this. This is a national security issue." My dad didn't tell anybody until I was about 13 or 14, and then he told me the story, and that sort of got me interested. And I then began sort of reading books by people like Brad Steiger and John Keel, and, you know, just sort of starting to learn more about the subject.
People have told Mario and myself to stop going in UFOs and to stop researching it, or else before it's too late. What do you think they mean by that? What are your views on this?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think people could get into problems if you really stumble on, you know, the hard evidence that could blow the whole thing wide open. And that's the big problem that most of us, including me, have in ufology, is that we don't have any way to access the things that could really blow it wide open, you know. And I think it's the people who possibly do stumble, well, probably do stumble on something amazing that could really open the lid on Roswell or something like that. I actually do think that their lives could be in danger. I mean, there is good evidence that certain people, and even family members of people who were involved in the Roswell crash, were actually watched and listened to for decades afterwards, just in case, you know, those on the inside had overlooked something, or they were worried that, you know, some family member actually had something hidden away at home, you know, like one of the father or something at the crash site sort of smuggled a bit of wreckage out, that kind of thing. So I think there's good evidence that there is sort of a fear on the part of whatever this clandestine group is, that if you do get too close, you do become a security issue. But again, if that's sort of few and far between, because, you know, you can get a great story from some retired military person who tells you an incredible story about, perhaps his involvement at Roswell. But if there's no documents or no smoking gun, you know, the person might be 100%, 200% credible, but without something physical and tangible, those on the inside know it's just a story, and they know that without something solid and evidence, tangible evidence-based, that the mainstream media won't touch it, and it really won't go anywhere beyond the UFO community. So, yeah, I would say you could be having problems if you get too close to something and you find some tangible evidence. But otherwise, you know, I think you're probably just sort of carefully and quietly watched like everybody else is, I would imagine.
Because the thing is, every time we talk about the Dulce base or Area 51, especially the Dulce base, what happens is our computer shuts down, the lights flicker, just odd stuff like this.
Well, you know, it may well be. I mean, you have things like what are called trigger words, where, you know, particularly like the NSA, where systems are are designed, to essentially widespread telephone surveillance, and they can pick up on the programs, the technology picks up on certain words. If you said something like plane crash or something like that, it will pick up on those kind of things. So, if there are any issues that have a bearing on national security, even mentioning a word, completely out of context. If you said something like, you were talking to a friend and you said, I went to, you went to see a concert last night, and you asked, your friend said, well, what was it like? And you said, oh, the band completely bombed. You're talking about the band just not playing well, but that word bombed, could potentially get picked up by the trigger word technology. So, it could be something like that, there could be tens and tens of thousands of trigger words based around, this issue or that issue, and somebody says it over the phone and it gets flagged. So, it's not impossible that things like that happen. That's a fact. Trigger word technology is a hard fact.
So we speak about aliens all the time and everything. Do you think we should continue doing this?
Well, personally, I do, because I think, there's a mystery here to be resolved. And if it, regardless of what the phenomenon is, whether it's extraterrestrial or interdimensional or something else that we don't understand, but whatever it is, we know there's a real phenomenon. And clearly, somebody knows more than we do, and there's been a systematic effort to hide this material from the public. And my view is, if something's been hidden from the public, there's probably a good reason that we should know about it, And, the official line of just about every government on the planet is that we have no evidence that UFOs exist, and UFOs don't constitute a threat to national security. So my argument is, we know that the official line is UFOs constitute no threat to national security. So my answer is, well, where's the harm in investigating it then if you officially say there's no security issues? You can't have it both ways. You can't say there's no national security issue and then threaten people for looking into UFOs. It's one or the other. So I feel we should be allowed to know, because the way I look at it is, again, going back to the Cold War, everybody on the planet sort of lived under the threat of nuclear war. We could have obliterated civilization down to about 4% of its current figure, wiped out billions. And the atmosphere of the planet would have been just destroyed, for thousands of years. It probably would have taken thousands of years to recover from a worldwide nuclear war, as it would if it happened today. But we lived under that without panicking and having nervous breakdowns. So I think even if there are troubling aspects to the UFO phenomenon, as a species, we can still take it and accept it and hope something bad didn't happen. Because, as I said, we did that throughout the Cold War with all the Soviet missiles pointed at us, So I think in that respect, I think we should know. I think we could take the data, regardless of whether it's good, bad, or somewhere in between. And I don't think personally that it's right that a small group of, 50, 60 people should be the ones to say the world cannot know. So yeah, that's why I think we should keep pushing and looking for the answers, because I think everybody has a right to know what the answer is, rather than just a small elite.
Now, speaking of aliens, what do you think they are? What are they? Nephilims? Are they demons? Are they inhabited? What do you think these aliens are?
Well, I think whatever they are, I think they actually have sort of been interpreted in different ways by different cultures, depending on the period and the era and the time frame. I mean, today we call them extraterrestrials. I wouldn't be at all surprised if you go back sort of 500 years and if you read the stories of like goblins and gnomes and fairies, a lot of those stories, the modern day image of fairies, like a little female figure flitting around a Christmas tree with little wings, that's actually like a very modern day image. You read 400, 500, 600-year-old stories of fairies and goblins in Europe, they were described as sort of little 3-foot tall creatures that would invade people's homes in the night and steal babies. it's very similar to today's abduction stories. So I think a lot of these old-time, centuries-old stories of like the little people, I think a lot of those could be based on the same phenomenon that today we call extraterrestrials. And I also think if you go back much further than that, stories of demons and paranormal entities in ancient religious texts and things like that. I think, again, we're dealing with the same thing. If you look at the story, for example, of Lilith, who appears very briefly in the Bible, but who became sort of, part and parcel of, partly at least with Zechariah 6, the story of the Anunnaki, but also Lilith, in ancient mythology and folklore, was this sort of predatory creature that again would invade people's homes in the middle of the night, and he was like a female character, and she would have sex with men and steal their sperm to create these half human, half demonic, if you like, or half Lilith-like entities. And that actually sounds very much like what we get in abductions with the hybrid children. They take sperm, they take eggs, they take DNA to create these entities that look half human and half alien. Well, that's what Lilith was supposedly doing thousands of years ago, creating half demonic, half human entities. So, I'm sort of cautious about using terms like demonic, and because it implies one particular image in a lot of people's minds, and all I can sort of say for sure is I think a lot of the things that have been reported throughout history in different ways are actually the same thing, but it's just, cultural beliefs of the particular era and the country that has given them different names over the centuries.
I've been talking to people like on Facebook, and a lot of them claim that they've been taken, abducted, and raped by reptilians and have hybrid kids.
But yeah, I mean, you get a lot of stories of in abductions, whether it's the reptilians or it's the greys. There's always sort of like a sexual component, where say like DNA is taken, eggs and sperm are taken. Sometimes abductees are shown these weird-looking hybrid babies or hybrid children, where they look sort of fragile and skinny. Their heads are a bit bigger than normal. Their eyes are bigger, but they're not necessarily sort of the solid black eyes. But, they have similarities, and they have sort of wispy hair, to where they look like a cross between us and them. And as I said, you can find stories like this going back right throughout history. Even these stories like incubus and succubus type stories are very, very similar to today's abduction. So, in my mind at least, whatever's going on, some sort of genetic program, it's been going on for an extremely long period of time. And, the genetic reproductive angle seems to be the primary cause or goal of it, if you like.
Have you heard of the BEKs, the black-eyed kids? That would fall into hybrid genetics, I would presume.
Well, yeah, I've actually written about the black-eyed children. A good friend of mine named David Weatherly wrote a book called Black-Eyed Children, which is, it's like the definitive book on the subject, a really good book. And I had a new book out just recently called Men in Black, Personal Stories and Eerie Adventures. And David wrote for me a 20-page paper in the book all about how the black-eyed children kind of paralleled the men in black. That's to say, they both dress in black, they both have pale skin. Both the men in black and the black-eyed children try and force their way into people's homes, and there's a lot of weird similarities. But I mean, the idea that the black-eyed children are sort of alien human hybrids is actually quite a prevalent one, because they're pale skin. And their eyes are completely black, a solid black from side to side and up and down. So, in other words, they do look very alien-like, the classic alien grey that you see on, like Whitley Strieber's Communion book, probably the most famous example. These sort of skinny, pale, black-eyed creatures. Well, that's what the black-eyed children look like, but they look closer to us. They look odd. Their skin is like sort of not just smooth, but beyond smooth. They wear these black hoodies and they pull the hood down as far as they can so you don't get too much of a view of their eyes. And I think the main reason why they largely only service at night is because, the shadows give them a lot of protection. And, again, it helps from their perspective to camouflage them. So one of the sort of sinister theories that's been put forward is that the reason why we're seeing the black-eyed children and why they knock on people's doors and why they walk around late at night is to see if they can actually successfully infiltrate us. In other words, if they want to infiltrate us, and I do mean that in a sinister way, if they do want to infiltrate us, well, they've got to get out into the wide world and move amongst us and see if they get noticed, or if, from their perspective, hopefully they don't get noticed. So I think that could be something that's going on. The idea that whatever is creating these hybrids could potentially be sending them out there, whether it's men, women, or children that are half human and half something else. And it's basically a case of knock on doors, walk down streets, and see if anybody kind of looks at you twice, or doesn't pay any notice at all. So I think, this is a sinister area. I mean, there's been a number of some good studies suggesting that could be exactly what's going on, like a slow, bit-by-bit infiltration by alien entities. And I say alien by, something that we don't know what it is, that is not just infiltrating us, but perhaps over each successive generation, these things look more and more human, to where originally, they sort of 20 years ago, when people were talking about hybrid children, the heads were really big and the bodies were really skinny, to the point where it's almost like the body was too small to even hold the weight of the head. But today, their proportions are more like regular kids, but the skin is still white and their eyes are still black. But it seems like with every sort of successive 4, 5, 10 years, they refine themselves a bit more, so they look more and more like us as time goes on, which gets kind of into disturbing areas, to where one day, you have to wonder, could we have almost completely human-looking hostile aliens amongst us, and we never know it?
Oh, so where do you think these aliens come from? An alien, planets far away in the reticulated star system, or interdimension, another dimension?
Well, when I first got into all this, like I said, when I was a kid, when my dad's experience, and I started reading books on it, I thought it was all kind of just black and white, that we were dealing with like nuts and bolts craft and aliens, and essentially it's something along the lines of somebody else's equivalent of NASA. That's what I thought was going on. But the more I got into it, certainly when I got into my 20s and then 30s, I came more around to the idea that we're probably dealing with something that coexists with us. Something along the lines of an interdimensional factor. The idea of, probably the best way to explain it to the listeners would be, you're driving in your car and you're listening to the radio, you don't like the song that's playing, so you switch to another station, you don't like that song, so you switch to another, then another. You've got all these stations, all these songs all playing at the same time, but you can only be tuned into one at any given moment. Now, that's sort of the way quantum physics, in simple terms, describes multiple dimensions, that they're all existing at any given moment, but you can only be in one at any time unless you know how to sort of leap and jump in and out of it. So I think whatever these things are, I think they coexist with us in our sort of time and space, but in another reality, and they can cross over. And I think that could explain why they seem to have no trouble breathing in our atmosphere. You get tons of reports of people seeing aliens, abducting people, or, they run into a grey in the woods or whatever, and they're not wearing spacesuits or anything like that. They seem totally accustomed to our atmosphere, our oxygen levels, and everything else. So that leads me to believe, to me, that would be too much to believe. They're coming from 10 light years away, and they could just walk around on the Earth with no problem. That would be just almost too much of a stretch to believe. But if they are from some realm that coexists with us, that could make it a lot easier. So, and I sometimes wonder if they could actually sort of masquerade as extraterrestrials, because they're very often keen to tell us they're extraterrestrials. And I think sometimes they're actually over keen to stress they're extraterrestrials. And I sometimes wonder if they do that to camouflage what they really are by having us think they're aliens, which acts as a cover for, you know, what they really might be. And as you said, you know, some people say interdimensional, somebody else says demons, you know, etc., etc.
The biggest I'm getting these days is they're fallen angels.
Well, that's quite a popular theory, and you know, the idea that it's sort of like a demonic phenomenon that essentially is masquerading as extraterrestrial to try and reel us in and put us into like a false sense of comfort, if you like. I actually wrote a book on the demonic angle about 6 years ago called Final Events, and probably the most controversial book I wrote, but I was sort of careful when I wrote the book to point out that the book was a study of the theories and the people who believe the theories rather than my personal views. You know, I was sort of telling the story of how and why people, and also people in government, had come to the conclusion that this is all, you know, literally demonic. My personal view is that, you know, I don't have personally any proof that it is demonic, but I do think, as I said earlier, that the phenomenon is being responsible for creating images of aliens and demonic entities and things like this. You know, and so in other words, if someone has sort of a strong religious belief, they might interpret it as demonic. Somebody who has a strong scientific belief might view them as extraterrestrials. So I don't necessarily think, you know, we have proof that they are demonic or the fallen angels. What we have is people who have belief systems about fallen angels, and then they interpret that as to being related to the UFO phenomenon. Now, it doesn't mean it's not true. It just means we need to recognize the difference between facts and evidence and belief systems. But I mean, there's no doubt, though, that there are some crossovers between demonology and the UFO subject. I mean, I have a lot of cases in my files where people have had, for example, visits from the Men in Black, and not like the movie versions like Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, but these really weird, pale, skinny, vampire-looking Men in Black. And afterwards, the people have experienced like violent poltergeist activity in the homes. I've got other cases where the Men in Black turned up when people have been dabbling with Ouija boards, and it was like they invoked the Men in Black to come through. And again, as I said, they're not like in the movies. They kind of look like they're dead and, you know, like zombies. They look pale and gaunt and menacing, and, you know, and a lot of people think they are some sort of like a demonic type of supernatural entity. And a lot of people also, again, similarities with demonology. A lot of people who sort of dabbled in demonology and sort of opened doors. There are a lot of cases where people have fallen sick, you know, very serious illnesses. Well, that sometimes happens with people who are trying to sort of conjure up or evoke experience with extraterrestrials. They suddenly fall sick as well. There's quite a few cases like that, and where also people have been in the UFO subject and had bizarre runs of sudden bad luck, and, you know, like negativity's taken over their entire life. And they feel, you know, something paranormal or demonic has got its grips into them, and that happens to people in the UFO subject as well.
I have something here that, have you ever heard of like a Dulce base? What they do is they take your body and they put it in like some kind of like lead kind of casing, and your body it's a transparent vapor, and your soul wants to die, but your body no longer has enough atoms to house disease. You are aware while your soul is trapped into a copper football-shaped sphere held in alien cathedrals inside Dulce base for thousands of years. Have you heard of such a thing?
I've not heard that, but I mean, I have heard a lot of sort of soul-based stories. I mean, Whitley Strieber, probably, you know, one of the world's most famous abductees. During one of his abduction experiences, he asked these entities, you know, why are you doing this? What's the goal of it all? And they told him, they said, we recycle souls. And the late John Mack, the Harvard University professor. John Mack investigated a number of cases where abductees said that these grey creatures came into the bedrooms in the middle of the night, and they actually felt that they were trying to extract their soul, their life force out of their body. And so, there are more than a few stories like that. For example, Bob Lazar, talked about his time spent at Area 51. He said that in these reportedly classified files that he claimed to have read, he said that the aliens refer to us not as humans or people, but as containers. And one of the theories was that they view us as containers of souls. In other words, they don't care about us. It's like we're just the shell. For some reason, they have an interest in getting hold of the soul or recycling it. It almost sounds like, we're like unknowingly, we're like a soul factory where, we don't see the bigger picture. We think we're, flesh and blood animals or whatever, potentially with a soul, if you believe in the soul. But the bigger picture that some people suggest is that we're sort of farmed for our souls. We don't realize what's going on. The idea that the planet is a soul factory and everybody is sort of reaped of their soul, which is a very disturbing scenario to think about. And I think that's why it does sort of frighten a lot of people, the idea that the phenomenon isn't extraterrestrial, but is something beyond our understanding that essentially extracts and recycles souls in some sort of like bizarre, almost like a factory environment in simple terms.
Yes. My audience has some questions for you. Have you ever heard of, I don't know if this person is making a mistake, but of Area 52 in Utah?
Yes, I have heard about that. I mean, a lot of people don't realize, Area 51 is called Area 51 because there actually are multiple so-called areas in Nevada where different research goes on into different areas. The one that I've heard about in Utah, I don't think I have any more information than most other people have, but there is a story that when there was all this focus in the sort of the post-Bob Lazar era in the late 80s, early 90s, and certainly even more today, with movies like Independence Day promoting Area 51 even more, and the X-Files, the story is that a decision was taken to secretly transfer all the really highly classified material from Area 51 to somewhere in Utah. Now, the story is that, deep below ground, the government has these massive systems of sort of rail tunnels and things like this in the event of a catastrophic attack or, planetary disaster. We're talking about sort of tunnels and caverns and bunkers, way underground, possibly even thousands of feet. And allegedly, Area 51 is sort of connected by a network of tunnels to various other places, including this one in Utah. So that's the story that, sort of alien bodies, craft, back engineering, all this kind of stuff, transferred out of Area 51. And the story expands from there that today, they keep up the ruse of the secret of Area 51 to make sure that everybody still focuses on Area 51 and isn't sort of led away to the other potential places where all the work might be going on, which would actually make a lot of sense. You build up one place as allegedly where all the stuff's going on, and all the people who are looking for it hang around there and investigate it. But when in reality everything's been secretly moved somewhere else, that would be even I have to admit that would be like a brilliant tactic to take.
Definitely, for sure. It sure would be. Do you think that there's an alien connection to the secret government, an ancient alien connection?
Well, I think it's possible in the sense that, when I wrote the book Final Events, for example, there was no doubt, or there is no doubt, that this particular group in government that was interested in the demonic angle, they weren't just sort of looking at UFO reports from the 40s and the 50s. They were actually going around to old libraries and universities and essentially museums and reading sort of like 600-year-old manuscripts on demonology and things like this, and ancient religious texts from all sorts of worldwide religions going back thousands of years. So in other words, they clearly understood that that there was the phenomenon goes back a very, very long way. None of these people in this particular group, which was called the Collins Elite, or that was its nickname at least, none of these people believed it all began in 1947 with the kind of Kenneth Arnold sighting and the Roswell crash. They believed that was just sort of the modern era of something that had been going on for a very long time. And some of them did believe that, the phenomenon of UFOs began pretty much possibly when we began, or that it was responsible for us and has kept watch on us ever since, whether friendly, or not so friendly, or somewhere in between. So yeah, there's no doubt, I think, that there are people in government that recognise there's some sort of ancient connection between, what you would call us and them.
How far do you think the underground bases go, and could they go all the way to an ancient hollow earth civilization?
Well, I mean, scientifically, they couldn't go just, to the core of the planet because of the, the tremendous heat and, just the inability to live at such deep levels inside the planet. But it wouldn't surprise me, if there are highly advanced, deeply buried bunkers, probably going down thousands and thousands of feet, but, with highly advanced boring equipment, and technology to basically you sort of, just cut through the rocks. It wouldn't take too long. If you systematically did it over years and years and decades, you could create a west coast to east coast network of tunnels, which every so often, the tunnels would open up into deep bunkers. One could perhaps house 5,000 people, another one 10,000 people. To give you an example, I'm originally from England, in the south of England. There's a place called the DCN, the Defence Communications Network. That is buried deep underground in the county of Wiltshire in England, and that can house literally thousands and thousands of people for months, with running water, fresh water, food, recycled oxygen that isn't reliant on oxygen from the surface, which if there was like a nuclear attack, it would be contaminated with radiation. They can live down there in an emergency situation, like up to 7 months for somewhere in the region of like 20,000 people. And that was built decades ago. So you imagine where we are today, there could be, an entire underground or underworld hub of facilities that, unless you're cleared to know about it, you wouldn't know about it.
What are your thoughts on that there could be global disclosure? Aliens, like the president or the world government's on to talk about the discovery of like aliens and everything. There's going to be a disclosure of some kind coming soon.
Well, the one thing that I like about the people in the disclosure movement is that, they're very enthusiastic about what they do. They sort of go knocking on doors and they petitioning and, lobbying for this to be released. And that's good. In this field, you need to be enthusiastic about what you're doing. But I also think there's sort of like an incredible naivety on their part because, well, call me kind of cynical, but I don't really think that petitioning this agency or that agency is going to work, because the people who are hiding this secret and who have hidden it for so long, they're not just going to say, oh, well, we better release it because 2,000 UFO researchers tell us we've got to release it. To me, that's just totally naive. I think the only time we will get disclosure, and if we get disclosure, is if it benefits those that are hiding the secrets. If it just benefits us, we'll never get the information because they don't want to release it. If it benefits them to tell us, then I think we would get to see it, but I'm not sure it would actually be to our benefit. They might release it as another sort of fear factor tool, on top of fear of the Russians, the North Koreans, terrorists. They might say, well, there's aliens as well, just to say, just live in fear a bit more, and they'll take away more of your rights, and we've got to watch you even closer because now we're dealing with aliens. I think if it's going to happen, it would be under those circumstances, ways and means by which it could be used against us. I don't think anybody who's sitting on the really deep, dark and sensational material, I don't really think they want to tell us. And I think they just sort of view the disclosure movement as a bizarre body of people. I think they view it as, do they really think that by knocking on the door we're going to tell them? You know, I think that's how they look at it. They're saying to themselves, you know, we're not going to open the doors just because they're knocking on it. I think that's how they look at it.
Nick, do you think there's a connection between the New World Order, Illuminati, and the aliens?
Well, I do, in the sense that I think a lot of these powerful societies, and like the ones in government, know something of the extraterrestrial origins or the paranormal, if you like, whatever these entities are. A lot of these groups, these powerful elite groups, you know, which are the real ones that sort of run the planet, you know, not the presidents, the prime ministers, the kings or the queens, but these real sort of power players from rich ancient families that, you know, major manipulators of world activity. I think they know a great deal about our origins, which are, you know, those origins are not what most of us think they are. Now, to what extent they are liaising with extraterrestrials, you know, there's a lot of rumours and stories, and maybe they are just rumours and stories, or maybe they go even further. But I don't. But there's no doubt though that, you know, they've taken an interest in these stories of like the Nephilim and fallen angels and you know, all those kind of ancient stories. So somebody knows something. Whether they've got proof, you know, that I don't know.
What are your thoughts on the flat Earth theory?
Flat Earth? Oh,
yes.
I think it's not nonsense. You know, the Earth's round. You know, to globe.
That's for sure. So do you think NASA is part of like a cover-up for what's really going on? There's a real space program that's going on, and NASA is just there to cover up where they've been on Mars already?
Well, I do believe that there's probably been some sort of secret space program, but I don't believe that NASA is part of it. I think NASA legitimately does what NASA does, and I think NASA is out of the loop of the secret space program. I think that's probably a lot more like a militarized program. But, you know, in other words, I don't think NASA is a cover story, or that NASA itself is orchestrating a secret space program alongside the public one. I think NASA genuinely believes it's the only one doing what it's doing. But personally, I think there are other groups doing things. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if sort of highly advanced technology developed out of Area 51 could well have, you know, been built and deployed, and there could have been clandestine missions to Mars or to the moon, places like that, undertaken, you know, from somewhere like Area 51, and NASA would never know anything about it. So, in other words, I don't view NASA as the bad guys at all. I don't think they're hiding anything in terms of a secret space program, because I don't think they're cleared to know about the secret space program any more than me and you are. But that doesn't take away the fact that I think there is a secret space program.
What are your thoughts on remote viewing?
Oh, well, I think, you know, remote viewing is one of these things that works. The only downside with remote viewing is that, and this is one of the problems that a lot of the remote viewers had in the 70s, you know, working for the CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency and people like this, is that it didn't work all the time. You know, some of the people had really good successes on one day, and then the next day they just couldn't get it to work. So I think when it works really well. And I think, you know, the world of espionage in the 70s, they had some really good successes, you know, in sort of spying on the Russians and the Chinese. And we know that the Russians and the Chinese were trying to use remote viewing to spy on us. But it was sort of a hit and miss thing. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But there's no doubt, you know, that it, in my mind at least, that it's a real phenomenon. You know, and you can train people who can do this, can train themselves to get better and better at it.
I have a question here. What are your thoughts on Nightmare Hall? Is it fact, fiction, or something in between?
Well, I honestly don't know. I mean, I've heard all the stories about Nightmare Hall at Dulcie, where there's supposedly bizarre genetic experiments going on to sort of splice different types of animals together and crossbreed animals with people and all sorts of weird stuff. It's highly controversial. So all I can say is that the stories are out there, and some of those stories do come from insider people. Government people, military intelligence people. They're the ones who've told the stories. But whether or not that's because the stories are true, or they want to kind of sensationalize it or push us down that path to keep us away from another path, I honestly don't know. I just don't think there's enough information in hand yet to sort of push it one way or the other for sure.
Is there any legitimate UFO footage and alien pictures anywhere that we can find that you've seen?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think certainly some of the photographs going back to the 40s and the 50s are the real thing, and there've been some good photographs of the so-called flying triangle phenomenon type of UFO as well. So, I think there is some good photographic evidence. There's some film footage. Some of the outer space footage impresses me, and some of it doesn't. But that's the same with UFO photography across the board. It's like some's good, some isn't so good. But I think when you put the good material together, there are some good pictures that sort of stand the test of time. In my view, there's no doubt about that at all.
Other bases on Mars, on the moon, sorry.
Well, we've had stories like this. I mean, probably the best example came from a guy named Carl Wolf, who in the 1960s was attached to the US Air Force Base, and in that time frame he was assigned to a NASA program at Langley Air Force Base, and he was exposed to a story of how apparently satellites had picked up on the far side of the moon this essentially what you would call like a huge installation, and nobody apparently knew who built it. And this, of course, was before we went to the moon. It wasn't the Russians, it wasn't us who built it. So the story that this account suggests is that yes, that somebody is living on the far side of the moon, and of course that would make a great deal of sense because the sun, the moon, always keeps its one facing the Earth. It's not like it sort of spins around the Earth. It's in a static orbit with just the one side of the face always looking at us.
What's your personal opinion on the work of David Icke and his reptilian theories?
Well, I think David Icke's done a lot of really good work in terms of, like the secret society stuff, the Illuminati, and also these global players that are sort of cynically manipulating society to essentially control us, and put us under the thumb of the elite. So I think all that sort of stuff's really important and relevant and right on target that he's talked about. I personally don't think the British royal family are shape-shifting reptiles at all, though. I just don't see that.
It's very possible that one day we'll find out the truth about all of this. I mean, he says all the presidents, they're interlinked, they're interbred, and they're all half aliens, half humans. It's hard to tell, but it's kind of out there.
Well, I would hope we will, because people have been investigating UFOs since the late 40s, which is, pushing 70 years ago now. I mean, next year, Roswell will be 70 years ago. That's how long ago it is. If you had a guy who was 20 guarding the Roswell crash site, he would be like 90 now. That when you put it like that, you realise how long this has been going on for and how long the secret's been kept. But I would hope, that at some point the answers will come, and I hope the answers will be positive rather than negative, and friendly rather than dangerous. And I hope that as the people that we'll know, rather than it being decided by, like I said, some sort of elite that has decided, well, we're going to make the decision to whether they know or not. I think hopefully maybe one day it'll turn around, and we'll all know on our terms, you know, the average man, woman, and child.
Exactly. Well, we've come to the final segment of the show. In closing, is there anything you would like to tell us, like your website, any new books, anything like that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I have a blog which is called World of Whatever, and so if you just type into the search engine Nick Redfern plus World of Whatever, you'll find my blog. And there's a contact section there if people want to chat with me. It's got a link to my Facebook page, and I've got a couple of books coming out shortly. One actually out next month called Weapons of the Gods, which looks at these stories of alleged ancient nuclear war in the distant past. You know, a lot of ancient texts talk about sort of cities being destroyed like Sodom and Gomorrah, and the stories in the Mahabharata. And so that's the theme of the book. It looks at the idea of extraterrestrials waging atomic war in the distant past, and that's called Weapons of the Gods. That'll be out in April. And I also have a follow-on book from my Men in Black book, which will be out roughly about the same time, called Women in Black, and that deals with the far lesser-known stories of people who've had UFO experiences and have been afterwards visited by these sort of creepy, pale-faced women in black who threaten them not to talk about UFOs. So it's sort of like the mirror image of the Men in Black book that I did.
I've never heard of Women in Black, but that's amazing.
And there's actually dozens and dozens of stories. I mean, I had quite a few, but when I started to write the book and people contacted me, even I was kind of surprised at the sort of sheer number of Women in Black reports that there are. And they look just like the Men in Black. You know, they wear sort of like a black business type suit, you know, a woman's business type suit, but they have this really weird, smooth, pale white skin, and oddly sometimes, you know, black sunglasses and these what are clean black wigs, as if they look, you know, they move the sunglasses, remove the wig, they look far more like the classic sort of alien imagery. And you know, that kind of ties in with the black-eyed children as well. You know, the Men in Black, the black-eyed children, the Women in Black, they all kind of look sort of alien human hybrid like, and I think that is what they could possibly be, you know, but they try and dress like us and look like us as much as possible to blend in. So that's sort of, all those are sort of the kind of things I talk about in the Women in Black book. And as I said, that should be out probably, I think, round about the end of April, something like that.
Are these books available on Amazon?
Oh yeah, all my books are available at Amazon, and probably 10 or 15 of them you can buy off the shelves in Barnes and Noble as well.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank you very much, Nick Redfern, for coming on the show, and we definitely want to have you back on our show.
All right. Well, thanks, Robert. I appreciate having me on. Thank you.
All right. So we'll have you back on soon again. Thank you very much. God bless you, and have a great evening.
You too, Robert. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye. Well, Mario.
Yes. No, that was mind blowing.
It was. I hope I asked everybody the questions that they wanted to hear. The questions were there. My questions, the viewers' questions, the world's questions. You know, and I never heard of the Women in Black. That's one book I definitely want to look into. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I never heard of that. This is like, what the hell? It's like way out of my league now. Now it's like we've got to look into that, because knowing us, we might get that. You and I, especially you and I.
I wonder how they look like. You know, I mean, if they take off their wigs, they look like aliens in the sunglasses. That would not be too good. You know, not too attractive. You know. But any final thoughts before we end the show?
No,
any comments?
I mean, I'm glad we did this show. I mean, I have to rewatch this show again because there's just so much going on, and questions in Chitango, and trying to understand, trying to grasp, not understand, but grasp what Nick Redfern was saying, not trying, but was saying, because there's so much information. It's like too much for me. It's a good thing I'm wearing a cap, because you'd be seeing smoke coming out of my head. That's how much information there was there.
There was a lot of information. Exactly. And we're definitely going to have him back on our show soon. So that's it for this week. We'll be back next week with another show. We hope you enjoyed our show tonight with our special guest, Nick Redfern. And this show will be uploaded on YouTube record it, and please share this information with everybody. It helps us. It helps everybody spread the truth of the New World Order, alien agenda, and everything else. So till next week, God bless you all. Thank you for watching the show, MnRTV Live.
Yes, thank you. And we'll be back next week if God willing, right? If we don't get attacked or sucked into some kind of UFO. But anyhow, thank you everybody for watching. You guys are the greatest. And we'll be back. All right there. Thank you. Good night.
Night.